proposed budget for the Department of Public Safety, Divisions of Police, Division of Fire, and Division of Support Services. I would like to thank the Council President for attending this evening's hearing. Copies of today's agenda are available at the entrance of Council chambers. Also, a friendly reminder, any person who takes action to obstruct or interfere with today's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting. Any person who enters the area of the City Council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with trespassing. Public safety continues to be the main priority for Mayor Andrew J. Ginther. The overall budget for the department is more than $647 million, over 67% of the total $965 million general fund operating budget. Today, Deputy Director George Speaks will give an overview of the budget process for the Department of Public Safety. Then, Interim Chief Thomas Quinlan from the Division of Police, Chief Kevin O'Connor from the Division of Fire, and Acting Support Services Administrator Kathy Collins will highlight the budget proposals for their respective divisions and outline goals and initiatives for the coming year. I would like to have all of them present first, then reserve time for my colleagues or to ask questions. With that, Deputy Director Speaks. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, President Hardin, Chairman Brown. On behalf of Director Pettis, we are very pleased to be here tonight to present our 2020 proposed budget. We greatly appreciate the budget allocated to public safety. As you said before, Chairman, it continues to be the Mayor Ginther's top funding priority, as shown by the proposed allocation of $647.4 million, which equates to 67% of the overall general fund budget. Our public safety forces are nationally recognized as among America's most outstanding. And prior to talking about this budget, I would first ask our division leaders to highlight some of the outstanding and innovative work being done in our neighborhoods in response to this year's 1.3 million calls for service so far this year. We'll begin with Chief Quinlan.
Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Brown. Thank you very much for time today. With respect to the Division of Police, 2019 was a transformative year in the CLIA accredited Division of Police. I am pleased to report that the number of homicides is trending down, 98 currently, down from 114, a 14% reduction. However, despite an often difficult and dangerous environment, our officers have partnered with the community, and as a result, overall crime continues to decrease. This decrease is occurring even as the population of Columbus continues to grow. The division appreciates the additional 10 officers added to this month's recruit class starting Monday, which now totals 50 Columbus police recruits who start on Monday, as I said. We also look forward to an additional 90 officers planned for in the 2020 budget. Welcoming new officers to the division and creating new initiatives to confront violent crime will remain a top priority as we work to keep our neighborhoods safe. We continue to focus on training for both the police recruit and incumbent officers. Our goal remains to provide state-of-the-art training to our personnel so they can effectively deal with violent crime while meeting community expectations. We use scenario-based de-escalation, decision-making, and crisis intervention training. Our training excellence is illustrated by the fact many outside agencies send their officers to our academy for their own training, and we are now at 17 agencies. Our body-worn camera program fosters transparency and accountability. The division has deployed over 1,200 cameras that are recording approximately 124,000 videos per month, up from 65,000 per month last year. Moreover, our progressive policies and advocacy led to the passage of Ohio House Bill 425, which ensures that video footage is a public record while also ensuring the privacy rights of individuals. Accountability in 2019 became one of the division's core values. Addressing those experiencing mental health issues remains a priority. The division has partnered with Adam H. to place 7 NetCare mental health clinicians with 7 crisis intervention trained officers to respond to mental health related calls for service, up from 1,300 in 2018. Year-to-date, these mobile crisis response teams responded to over 3,800 calls for service and worked to link clients with community services. The mobile crisis response teams have been very successful, so in 2019, the unit was made permanent and is staffed by 6 officers and 1 sergeant. Likewise, we continue to explore innovative ideas to address the opiate crisis. Through a grant from the Ohio Attorney General's Office, the division has created 3 permanently assigned officers to the Rapid Recovery, Emergency Addiction, and Crisis Team, working with CFD, REACT teams, follow up on recent overdose victims, working to convince them to enter treatment at the Mary Haven Addiction and Stabilization Center and to stop the cycle of abuse. Community outreach and engagement continue to be a focus for the Division of Police. Neighborhood meetings, social media, diversity and inclusion officers are avenues used to collaborate with citizens. We expanded the Safe Streets Community Police Initiative in 2018 to 3 neighborhoods, Linden, Hilltop, and the Parsons Avenue area, which corresponds to areas where ShotSpotter is operational. In 2019, we expanded the time frame of the program. With the proposed Safe Streets budget for 2020, we will continue to engage residents and make them a part of the problem solving for the neighborhoods and improve community police relations. In 2020, the division plans to create a special Safe Streets operation during the Thanksgiving and holiday Christmas seasons. The Division of Police received recommendations from the Matrix Consulting Group, and upon receipt had already identified and implemented 53% of the recommendations. The Mayor's Community Safety Advisory Commission list of recommendations is due out shortly, and they will be used in help improving our service capabilities and our relationship with our citizens that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, Fire Chief Connor.
Good afternoon, President Harden, Councilmember Brown. With respect to the internationally accredited Division of Fire, the Division of Fire is comprised of 5 bureaus, each of which is focused on meeting the goals and objectives as outlined by Council and the Mayor's Office. Changes made to the Fire Prevention Bureau inspection program in 2018 has shown full effect in 2019 that has resulted in improvements in the number and quality of fire prevention inspections performed. These efficiencies were needed given that the city is adding 40 to 60 new buildings monthly. This growth, while exciting and dynamic for the city, does create expanding workload challenges. The Bureau will continue to look to use results-oriented changes to meet this demand. Through community involvement with the smoke detector program, we continue to make families safer by installing smoke alarms in many neighborhood homes. We have also worked with the building department to allow customers to more easily apply and obtain inspections and permits. The Division of Fire Emergency Services Bureau continues to see the expansion of our EMS responsibilities. Daily, the division averages over 500 calls for service. This is trending about even with last year. Emergency Service increased concentrated training on increasing incident command presence of its senior leadership in 2019. This has resulted in increased safety and efficiency on the emergency scene and has helped the division maintain the strides it made in reducing multiple alarm responses by 50% compared to 2016 and 2017 levels. The Support Service Bureau will open new Fire Station 35 located on Wagner Road early next month. This continues the commitment the city and the Division of Fire have shown to provide timely and effective EMS and fire response by providing a response time of less than 8 minutes to 91% of all calls for service in the city of Columbus. This station has added focus on being the first in our city to be built with an emphasis on EMS and firefighter safety by being designed to decrease the exposure our members face to toxic environments. The Division of Fire's Recruitment, Diversity, and Inclusion Office performed over 1,000 programs and reached out to over 15,000 participants. This continuous goal to reflect the diversity of the community throughout our workforce, we expanded the use of social media and for the first time in an application process used a text-to-apply process where we can get immediate engagement with the prospective recruits by having them text "Join CFD" to 474747. This culminated in 3,838 applicants applying to become firefighter EMTs with the Columbus Division of Fire this year. Our partnerships with stakeholders were expanded, including the Columbus Urban League, who provided mentoring and tutoring to many candidates to more successfully guide them through the hiring process, and this has shown direct results. Likewise, the Ministerial Alliance and the Columbus Public Schools have partnered with us to develop the first-ever Division of Fire Cadet program that was launched in 2019. Their assistance in helping us should not be diminished. The results of all these efforts will see the class of recruits joining our division on Monday, December 16th, just a few days from now, reflecting a diversity makeup of 45%, including the largest cohort of female recruits in the division's history. Our goal is to hire highly qualified individuals who constantly reflect the community we serve, and all efforts have been devoted to more than doubling the level of diversity in the division within the next 9 years. In 2019, we continued our focus on the opiates epidemic by utilizing EMS to reduce deaths due to overdose. Our rapid emergency addiction and crisis team was active in assisting individuals struggling with addiction. This team, mentioned earlier by Chief Quinlan, was compiled of both Division of Fire paramedics, police officers, and addiction specialists to become a model in the nation. In addition, we want to acknowledge the support of the Mayor's Office, City Council, the City Attorney, the County, and City and County Health Departments. This additional funding through the budget, as well as grants, have allowed this program to make a daily impact on the crisis by being a bridge to rehabilitation and treatment. This cooperation has also led to this unit receiving multiple grants to support this program's existence, and has allowed this unit to continually be held up as an example of the best practice being copied by cities across the country. The Division of Fire partnered with Ohio Health, Mount Carmel Health Systems, and the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center in March of this year to launch the state-of-the-art life-saving care to stroke victims before they arrive at the hospital. This mobile stroke treatment unit is a specialized vehicle designed to diagnose and provide definitive care to victims of the field in the stroke. We effectively brought the CAT scan to the driveway. This is important because a stroke can rapidly damage the brain if left untreated, making every minute count. When the unit arrives on scene, a team of trained stroke professionals virtually connect to Ohio Health stroke neurologist. A CT scan helps determine the cause of the stroke, and the neurologist determines the appropriate treatment. The patient is then taken to one of the 3 comprehensive stroke centers in Central Ohio, at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, Mount Carmel East Hospital, or Ohio Health Riverside Methodist Hospital. The division appreciates and looks forward, in addition to the addition of 70 recruits planned for the 2020 budget. This addition will help us to not only replenish the loss of personnel due to separation, but also prepare for the opening of Replacement Fire Station 16 in North Linden in 2020. The Division of Fire is proud of our accomplishments in 2019, and with your support, we will continue to be focused on our mission of providing timely and effective fire and emergency medical services. And now, Division Administrator Kathy Collins.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, President Hardin and Chair Brown. The Division of Support Services is the 3rd division under Public Safety. Its mission is to provide communication and technology services to our first responders, as well as to ensure the public is safe in regards to licenses, permits, weights, and measures. Those are the 3 sections that we have. First, I'd like to give some information about our licensing and weights and measure units. The license section has issued over 30,000 licenses and permits this year to date. For example, we inspect and license over 40 types of businesses: food trucks, taxi cabs, street vendors, hotels, motels, commercial sales, charitable solicitations, and arcades, just to name a few. New to the year of 2019 is the short-term rental license, and to date we have issued over 950 short-term rental licenses to primary and secondary locations. The weights and measures section inspected 16,222 devices. We inspect gas pumps, laundromats, car washes, weight scales in stores, taximeter, air pumps, among other things. This year, the inspectors were trained and have started to inspect commercial electric vehicle chargers as well. The division is also responsible for the payment of indigent burial. This year is the first we used a contract with the vendor at a rate lower than what was specified in Columbus City Code prior to the change in legislation. But unfortunately, the number of indigent burials is up compared to previous years. To date, we have paid out over 200 indigent burial applications. In regards to our 911 functionality and systems, a 911 upgrade hardware refresh was completed earlier this year. There will be a major upgrade in January. There will also be a Viper software upgrade in 2020. Completion of adding text to 911 functionality to our 911 system, which allows those that cannot call into our communications section the ability to text for help. To date, the countywide system has logged over 240 text to 911 sessions. That's an entire session. The 911 Communications Center processed a total of 1,297,658 calls so far this year into the 911 Communications Center, which includes 674,933 total 911 calls and 622,724 total non-emergency calls. This represents a 1.3 increase over 2018. Efficiencies have been made this year in the system to more quickly route calls to the correct public safety answering point. In the coming months, we will be close to the completion of the upgrade to the computer-aided dispatch, or the CAD system, and have currently totally rebuilt our network to support it. I hope to start looking at licensing software to assist the public in obtaining licenses by allowing them to start the process online and preload as many documents as possible, making the licensing process more efficient and customer-friendly. At this point, thank you for your time, and I will hand it back to Deputy Director Speaks.
Thank you. President Harden and Chairman Brown, you can see we've had an amazing year. A lot of hard, innovative work by our police, fire, and communications folks. I'd now like to switch from this year's accomplishments to the 2020 budget. As Chairman Brown said, the proposal is $647.4 million to public safety. This would represent a 3.42 increase over last year's projected expenditures. Of this money, $360 million would be allocated to police, $271.4 for fire, $7.9 for support services, and $8.1 for safety administration. Some of the proposed highlights that will make use with this money include, first, a fire class. The proposed budget of 70 recruits, again, that would be a class of 35 in June, 35 in December of next year. This will continue the mayor's trend to either increase or maintain the total number of firefighters over projected retirements in our nationally accredited Division of Fire. Please recall that for a number of years, we were only able to do a single class due to budget concerns. In 2012, for example, we were only able to have a class of 35. In 2013, 35. In 2014, 40. And in 2015, 45. However, since then, Mayor Ginther and President Harden have been able to add dual classes every year. So please recall that in 2016, we increased to 65 individuals. We had 2 classes in 2017 for 80 recruits, 85 in 2018, and again, this proposal for 70 this year. Due to these increases, we anticipate in a couple weeks at the end of this year, we will have 1,606 firefighters, which is the highest number in our city's history. Police class. It's anticipated that during 2020, there will be a total of 90 separations of sworn personnel in our Division of Police. Officers lost to these separations will be replaced with 2 budgeted classes totaling 90. Again, a class of 45 in June, a class of 45 in December, and this again will maintain at the highest levels ever our nationally accredited Division of Police. Narcan expansion. The Division of Police will continue with the program we started in 2017 with an additional $150,000 to equip many additional officers with this life-saving drug that counters heroin overdose. In addition, I would note that we just received a 4-year award of $1.9 million from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, which supports our REACT outreach activities. To give you some data from this year, police deployed Narcan 499 times this year with a 91.38 survivability rate. I am sure by the year's end, it will be over 500 with the number of folks that we administer the drug to. To give a comparison with last year we deployed 475 times for the year with a 92.63 survivability rate. Our comprehensive neighborhood safety strategy. Police budget includes $2.9 million for additional overtime, replacement bicycles and equipment to support our innovative Safe Streets initiative. This initiative will undoubtedly foster greater safety and enhance our police-community relations. Cadets. The budget includes funding for a second class of 20 cadets in both police and fire to continue building a diverse pipeline of highly qualified candidates to enter the Safety Force Academies of our two divisions. The initial cadet classes, which begin in 2019, are fully funded in 2020 in this proposed budget. ShotSpotter, a total of $625,000 is included in this proposal. As you recall, SpotShotter was strategically deployed through 9 square miles of the city during the first quarter of this year, and it's proven to be a very effective tool in identifying and reducing response times to deadly gunfire. Vehicles. We had been working with fleet management to determine the number of cruisers, unmarked vehicles, and general fund light vehicles to be replaced. In 2019, we purchased 50 marked police first responder SUVs and 6 marked fire SUVs. In addition, we purchased 18 unmarked administrative electric vehicles for police and fire and 3 specialty vehicles for police. Programs and initiatives. The following programs are funded at or slightly less than last year. Our jail contract with the Sheriff's Office in Franklin County is funded at $4.3 million. Our EMS billing contract at $2.3 million. Community Crime Patrol at $375,000, our partners at the Capital Area Humane at $225,000, and Crime Stoppers at $33,000. And lastly, I'd like to emphasize our police community relations. We will continue to engage the community to foster a partnership built on mutual trust and greater understanding. In 2019, as you know, the division underwent massive reorganization and implemented many new initiatives. Some of these new programs include a wellness bureau for officers, a therapy dog unit, the addition of life-saving AEDs and cruisers, as with our bicycle officers who also carry the AEDs, a youth services unit, a community education officer. If you recall, we have a new PACT unit, which stands for Police and Community Together. We are trying to address the quality, these are geared toward addressing the quality of life issues in our neighborhoods, such as nuisance abatements, prostitution, and the like. Additionally, the division expanded our domestic violence unit and the human trafficking task force. Moreover, the division is piloting a police-initiated juvenile diversion program for the first time. In 2020, we intend to keep our focus on technology issues such as a new CAD, a records management system that is cloud-based and which will ensure greater interoperability and efficiency, a criminal case management system, an employee early advention program as part of our new wellness program, a driving track. We are setting monies aside for a real-time crime center to start to see what that would look like in our city. And we will continue our partnership with COSI in a mobile clue exhibit that is geared toward middle school students. In closing, public safety appreciates the generous support of Mayor Ginther, City Council, and our Columbus community. With this budget, we will continue to serve, protect, and provide the service that is the very foundation of government, and that service is public safety. We're available to respond to any questions or concerns you may have about this proposed budget. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Director Speaks. At this particular time, I will throw it open for questions. Council President, do you have any particular questions you'd like to ask? I have a few that I think will help educate the public more about the activities involving the police division. I'll follow you. Okay. I guess I'm going to go primarily with police for the moment, Chief Quinlan. The question would be, as the budget document indicates, our city's population is rapidly approaching 900,000 residents. While the police and fire divisions are currently staffed at their highest number in our city's history, the demand for public safety service will only increase as our city grows. Can you speak to how the divisions are planning to address the demand with the appropriate staffing and technological innovations in this budget into the future, please?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. We're currently reviewing our patrol staffing plan, and we're looking to implement changes that address not only needs now, but what our needs are based on anticipated growth of the city population and in our area responsibility. These changes will include managing the spans of control and deployment of officers while exploring new methods of reducing the administrative time for both officers and supervisors, thereby in building or increasing opportunities for proactive, positive engagement. One principal method of accomplishing this task is to address the technology deficiencies that we've identified negatively impacting the officers' efficiency and their inability to have more proactive time that's suggested and recommended in the Matrix report. Technological innovations include replacing the existing body cameras that are reaching their end of service life with a plan to replace, beginning in 2021, a full replacement of the camera with the latest version of that. The technology is ever increasing and expanding, so we'll be looking at increasing that.
With that, Chief, just to expand on that, but certainly for the council president, that would involve additional cost, obviously, because we're talking about new cameras and expanding, or are we talking about existing costs for the cameras, for BWCs?
So Chairman Brown, if you recall that we underwent an arduous process to not only put the millions of dollars into the cameras, which is actually the cheap part, but more expensive is the storage. Come up with a body camera policy, and we also had a House bill passed throughout Ohio that ensured transparency and privacy. With respect to the cameras, we have the first version of WatchGuard. WatchGuard the technology keeps developing very quickly. They will be on their third version of the camera. Of course, some of it is not compatible, the third version versus the first.
Yeah.
So we are working with finance now to talking about swapping out cameras. We are looking, a projection right now will be 2021 for the latest camera. And that, again, we'll be swapping out over 1,250 cameras.
Okay. The important element is that the technology is changing, and the cost, of course, will be commensurate with that, and making sure that the BWCs are what the police division feels is the best model for our needs in the city of Columbus. Am I correct?
Exactly right. And I would also add that we utilize a different technology for our cars. We think there's some efficiency to also putting our body camera in car, making that the same system. So we'll be looking to do that also in 2021.
And the reason why I'm asking is, from a budgetary standpoint, the thought process is that we're laying the foundation now, which when we put our original version of our body cameras, but again, with technology changing, the costs are going to be there. And if you're telling me that there's going to be compatibility with our BWCs, the body-worn cameras, and the dash cam cameras inside the automobiles, right?
That's exactly correct. So in this budget, there is money to that will keep the cameras under warranty for 2020. That warranty will then expire, and that is why we're looking at the next technology, the third version, in 2021, looking ahead.
And Chief, I guess, how many cameras are on patrol? Most of our officers now have BWCs?
All of patrol has these cameras, but I'm also expanding the program. I want to put them on our tactical officers and our task force officers who are engaged in arrests and search warrants. So they'll be expanded for that purpose. But as Director said, also the less expensive part of the program is the actual equipment.
Yes.
The more expensive part is the memory, the server space. If we utilize a new technology, go to a cloud-based technology, we may be able to realize some savings there, plus the initial cost of the cameras won't be as much as what the server space is currently. So it will not be as big of a cost as what the original endowment was to get the program up and running. And then the other part of that is by putting the cruiser cameras, updating those to WatchGuard from the arbitrator system, we'll be able to reduce right now they're having to carry two different microphones, one for the camera in the car, the CVS, cruiser video system, and one for the body camera, which is self-contained. This will be able to do both, and it will also trigger the voice on the, which is very important. You've seen videos right now where the officer activates the camera, but it misses the audio because of the look back, and you miss something that occurred with the cruiser camera being the same as the body camera. When they turn the cruiser lights on, the camera's activated, the audio will be activated, so we won't have that missing audio anymore. So it's going to improve not just efficiency, but effectiveness of the program.
Again, very, very important. I guess in Director Speaks, how long do you have to keep the storage on video cameras?
So
What
it
are we
depends
talking
on
about?
what the underlying crime is. If it is a major type felony, for example, a homicide, it could be forever. And the reason for that is appeals, post-conviction appeals, those sorts of issues. So those films will literally be kept, that footage will literally be kept forever.
Thank you.
So it depends on the type of underlying crime.
Yes. Chief, you mentioned the Matrix report. Indicates that there is a need for additional frontline supervisors, as I understand it. Tell me how the division, based with this budget, is planning to address the recommendations for additional sergeant promotions and training.
Thank you, Chair. As part of the patrol staffing review that we are ongoing right now, we're looking at spans of control as a big part of that. What is the appropriate, they're recommending a 6 to 9 officer to 1 supervisor ratio. So we're looking at methods to make that balance. We're also looking at a future need for additional sergeants and lieutenants to be more reflective of what the Matrix report is recommending to maintain that balance, and with the importance they put on the first line supervisor on the street interacting with the officers. A big part of that is reducing the administrative downtime that supervisors spend in a police substation writing reports and doing administrative tasks. We need to have them more so on the street responding to incidents in real time, so they're not responding after an incident, but they're there to give direction and kind of supervise what's going on in real time, not just come in afterwards and investigate. So that's our goal, is to find that balance. So that's what we're working on right now. We're reviewing the current size of units to see how we can reduce the number of officers in select units and maximizing the amount of officers that we have deployed. We're looking at the possibility of using acting sergeants in an ad hoc basis. So right now we use acting commanders, deputy chiefs, or chief. Being the frontline supervisor, the sergeant is one of the most important people we have from a supervisor standpoint to protect what is going on for the public and for the division at the scene of a crime or an incident. We need to have somebody who's ultimately in charge. So I've created the Watch Commander program that really goes a long way and along that line to represent the chief of police at all times, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, but we also need to have the sergeants. So we're looking at the possibility of using acting sergeants for that purpose. And the big thing is streamlining the processes we have to reduce the redundancies we have through technology, through our administrative investigative processes. We've created an electronic investigative process now that can be done through our current P1 system, Premier One, that does not require that they regurgitate everything that was already been said in an arrest report and in other witness statements. They can pull those in and reflect the investigative report to show there's also less chance of an error that way by they misquoted or restated a fact wrong. It's all is more centralized. So we're looking at reducing redundancies in that regard to improve the amount of time officers are on, or supervisors are on the street with officers.
And Chairman Brown, I would also add lastly that this budget does allocate an additional 3 additional officers for the Division of Police.
Exactly.
Sergeants.
Let me one more question about Matrix, and then I'm going to go to fire. The report also talks about new technology and the sense of addressing time for proactive policing. But the records management system, Chief, I think you made some reference to that. Where are we stand with regards to the records management system?
Sir, if I had one wish list, this would be the top priority for me, to get a handle on the technology and the inefficiencies and redundancies that are currently in a server-based system. That's a decade-old program. We really need a cloud-based solution that has everything already built in from what's on the CAD side that can automatically be populated in the records management side and streamline the amount of time officers are spend in and downtime administrative report writing, going back to the sub because the server crashed and having to re-enter and going to the property room and having to start from scratch on a computer down there to do property, and then going to the clerk's office and having to transfer the charges down there, and then having to go back to headquarters and forward all the arrest paperwork electronically through the division's matrix system. It's different than the consulting group. They have a program called Matrix. We have to put all of our arrest report and all the arrest materials in an electronic form to transmit it to the court. They don't accept it in paper form anymore. So the redundancies that are built in are just grinding us to a halt on the front end. It makes a lot of people efficient on the back end, but what we need is the officer on the street to be more efficient. So if we get a new technology system with a CAD RMS that also has a criminal case management system in it,
Case management.
an early intervention system for officers. It'll also work with the justice tracks in our forensics to take property, the chain of custody from the property room to the forensics. And it will transfer to the matrix system. If we can do all that without officers making 6 different stops and delayed, there will be a dramatic increase in the amount of, I did a summary on it for Matrix and used the equivalent of 1 hour per day per patrol officer. If we just freed them up 1 hour a day from the redundancies, it would be the equivalent of 73 full-time officers on the street, just giving them back 1 hour a day by reducing the inefficiency.
Chairman Brown, as
Yes, sir.
Administrator Collins noted in her remarks, we should be hopefully completed with our CAD upgrade by mid-next year. That will then allow us time to focus on the RMS issues. That is our goal.
Mr. Chair, may I
Certainly.
follow up on your matrix question? Just for clarity's sake, Chief, in this 2020 budget, are there any additional costs that are incurred planning the implementation of portions of the matrix report? So you talked about the frontline sergeant component issue recommendation. Is that articulated in this, specified in this budget? And if it is or if it isn't, is that the only, or are there other specific implementation? And I'm trying to get to planning. What are we planning to do that we're paying for in 2020 out of the matrix report?
Civilianization is one. Go ahead. You.
Well, I would say we are still working on those issues.
Okay.
I know that the administration has set aside a pot of money. It has not been specifically defined yet.
Okay.
Again, our first goal has to be to complete the CAD upgrade by mid-year, and then by that time, I think that we'll have a clear path and plan to move forward on the RMS side.
Thank you.
And just real quick, what I did was I listed anticipated costs to address each one of the matrix recommendations that we're willing to do, but just require funding. So those have all been provided with what the anticipated cost is, and we're willing to move forward with funding.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair.
Chief O'Connor, you mentioned about technology with regards to Fire Station 35 will improve fire safety. Elaborate on that concept about what's going on with regards to environmental carcinogens that you're concerned about, certainly for our firefighters.
Yeah. Environmental concerns are one of the things from a health and safety standpoint that are foremost in every one of our firefighters and our administration's mind right now. One of the studies are showing that this station will have a transitional space that's never been designed into a firehouse before. And what that transitional space is a space to take the dirty environment that you brought back from the scene with them and prevent it from coming into the living space where they're going to be doing all of their workday routine. So that means there'll be positive pressure ventilation inside the living spaces, which will keep out that. There'll be transitional spaces. The dirty gear, dirty clothing will be discarded. They'll go through a cleaning room and then into a living room, basically. Living room not like a person would have in their house, but a living space in regards to how you would act in your environment for your workday when you're not on an emergency run. The costs of that are not inexpensive. That technology is something that added significantly both to square footage and the cost of Station 35. We want to thank council and the mayor's office for finding that additional funding, because this is one of those things that unfortunately we won't know how well this is effective for 30 years. Because it'll take that long to know. But we do know, all the studies are showing, all the experts are telling us, these are the things we need to do to keep our firefighters safer every day so that they can provide the service.
Along those same lines, Chief, speak to the equipment investments for the firefighters with regards to job injuries.
Yeah. One of the things we are done is we are looking, there are expansion of our ballistic vest program, our helmet shields. We've introduced power cots to most of our medic units last year. The goal is that 100% of our medic units will transition over to power cots, which eliminate the stress of that repeated strain of lifting that cot back and forth into there. We have done studies, and we'll actually be having a new EKG monitor rollout. We'll be transitioning the entire division over to a new model. This new model is lighter and smaller, provides all of the functionality that our residents need when they're having their worst day. But the reality is it will make our firefighters safer because it'll decrease the workload that they're exposed to, in some cases 16, 18 times in one given shift of carrying that equipment in. That equipment is something that will have a long lifespan, and it's something that it was studied by our firefighters, recommended by our firefighters, and is something that we're able to expand due to the budgetary process.
So are we talking about these new stretchers for all the different units, or just some of them right now?
Right now, there's a few units that still don't have them in, and has to do with how the medic unit is itself. Some of the medics have different capabilities built in them to handle that. But the goal is that 100% of all of our medic units will have these power cots installed. And that's part of the budgetary process. Any new unit that's ordered in is ordered in with these power cots.
Do you think by the end of next year, into 2020, we'll have all of them, or what's your approximate timeline?
That's our goal.
Okay.
Yeah, our medic units are on a 5-year replacement cycle. This has been going on for a number of years, so as soon as that replacement cycle is over, they should be completed.
Also, Chief, about that, the division invested, we talked about this, in medical supply dispensary machines in 2017 to try and increase efficiency and reduce waste. Do you have any information on the update on those dispensary machines?
Yeah, one of the
Educate
biggest
public
areas
about what's going on with that.
Absolutely. One of the biggest areas that we had waste was that medications would expire and then couldn't be used. There was no efficient way to manage that because we couldn't see across stations or there wasn't a report that could be generated that any of our supervisors could even administer. So with the introduction of that system, in the first year, we saw a 50% reduction in waste of medications. And last year, we saw a 0% waste. We had no drugs expire in the Division of Fire. So that meant we had 100% utilization of that, and that was a cost savings so far this year of over $88,000. So we're anticipating about $100,000 a year in annual savings just from expired drugs not having to be replaced and a better utilization of that. And we're looking about how that program could potentially be expanded if possible. But right now, we are seeing very good results. It's doing everything we want it to do. It's making it easy for our medic units to swap out medications when they're needed. It's keeping them in a very secure environment that we can track every member that's checked those out if there's any issues with that, and can make sure we're DEA compliant. And then also the fact is, from an economic standpoint, it is saving us money that we're able to reinvest back into the emergency medical services.
There's, in the budget, additional dollars for medical supplies. I want you to speak to why the need for all that, given the fact that you have some savings already, but the expansive component of that and the relationship you have with the police division with regards to providing them, I guess, the naloxone that they need to be able to do the job for the firefighter, for police officers.
Yeah, well, we have savings in one, and that's one of the things we're constantly looking on how we can do better. One of the things that happens is, while we have a savings of expired medications, our need for those medications has increased. We provide medications in regards to naloxone to the police. Those things are getting into the patients' systems faster, which is making them have survivability incidents now that could have been fatal incidents before. So those medications also, there is a cost of those medications going up. There are certain medications that we face throughout the year that are on a national backlog, and that we have to sometimes buy those medications in larger quantities up front because we're the potential for them to be on backlog by the end of the year, and we want to make sure our residents have that capability. So all of those things require us to increase the cost of those funding, the cost of medications. You see it in the news almost every day. The cost of medications, some of them very basic medications that millions of people need for survivability, have gone up dramatically in cost, and that's one of the things that happens. We're faced with that as well. While we have an EMS billing program, our EMS billing program does not allow us to recover the cost of those medications. Right. It only allows us to recover the cost of the transportation.
But even with that, Director Speaks, I know you can speak to the issue of the contract for EMS billing, but the projected number for 2020 is, well, for 2019, what, 16 million, something like?
Probably around close to $17.5 million that the city will bring in EMS billing. So even though you'll see in this budget that there's an expenditure of about 2.3 that goes to our billing company, that's a good thing. We want that number to ever increase, which means that more revenues come in to help us offset the cost of providing EMS services.
My suggestion is don't let Echo deal with the numbers, because, there's no telling what will happen when he starts to deal with all that. Chief O'Connor, and the division improved the EMS response model to ensure the right resources were available for each call for service. Has the staffing changed and yielded a intended outcome, or where do we stand with regards to that?
Those changes have shown a pretty dramatic impact on the Division of Fire. Probably most significantly, it has decreased the workload on our members. It used to be a smaller portion of our membership had to create a greater burden of the work. Now that is more evenly distributed across the system. In regards to the response time and what the residents of Columbus are seeing, is the fact is that we are meeting our response goal of 90% of the time, having the right resource on the initial call for service. We're actually meeting that. We're actually over 91% of the time. We're getting the right resource at the right time to the right place with the very first information we get from the caller. It may seem like you'd want to get to 100%. That absolutely is our goal. But the reality is we take incomplete information from a caller who may not even be a part of a situation, who may have been getting that to relay. And then our dispatchers are doing an excellent job of taking that information, synthesizing it, and then putting it into a system that sends the right resource at the right time to the right place. With the expansion of that and the changes we did, we were able to implement 5 additional medic units when in service on a 24/7 basis. We also put additional EMS supervision on the street because of the increased workload. They're also now, they have support from leadership and lieutenants and captains that are showing up on the scene to help them on those most critical of runs. All of those things are things that the budget was going to prevent us from doing that under the old system because the overtime costs to get those people were just too high. Now we were able to utilize existing resources, redeploy them in a manner that makes the workload decrease on our membership, expanded the number of medic units we have on the street, and the supervision we provide those members on the street, while still meeting a constant or potentially ever-increasing workload of responses.
With that, Chief, and then I'm going to go into the 911, we have a system whereby you have other fire divisions who come in to help us as we help them. What's the impact on our system with regards to that taking place now?
I'm not sure exactly in what regards.
Well, is it having a negative impact on our ability to get the job done because of the expansiveness of the population? Because we're 900,000 people. Our relationships with other, like Toro Township, for example, they come into Columbus periodically when we're really busy, and oftentimes we try to offset their circumstances. How's that all working out?
That's one of the constant things we're trying to work on. Our responses from our township partners have average around 45,000 responses for them into the city on any given year. What we're trying to do is make sure that we grow with them, and that requires an expanding pool of personnel. Because what happens is those townships are responding sometimes on the outskirts and sometimes inside the city limits. Because as the city grows, it potentially grows outward, and it takes us time to build a station. Station 35 has honestly been in the works for over a decade, and it's finally going to open in January. That's going to give us on the far east side the ability for Columbus firefighters to be responding on Columbus Division of Fire runs that in the past had to be relied on by the township. There are areas that we continually need to grow in that regard, the far northeast side, the far southeast, far southwest. And then we also have some infill areas that just because of the growth patterns of the cities, we rely too heavily on our township partners. This system has allowed us to be able to look at what those expansions could be and where that has to be. We're trying to do everything we can efficiently with our budget, but the reality is that with a limited amount of budgets, I want to make sure that 100% of our residents are protected. And if that means building a station on the outskirts to take less runs than building a station on the inside, only because a township might be able to provide protection there, our residents are still protected, even though it's not by a Columbus Division of Fire member. That is our ultimate goal. We would like 100% of Columbus runs to be taken by Columbus. But we have to balance that with the ability as the city grows. How do we expand outward and provide protection to them as well? To me, an unprotected person is at higher risk than a protected person who may be protected by an agency that doesn't have a Columbus Fire logo on it.
But I think we should also underscore that it is also mutually beneficial.
Yes.
Mutual aid is mutually beneficial in that the townships also receive our aid. And specifically, we are the big guy on the block, if you will. If there is a major crisis, Columbus is the insurance policy, if you will, that can respond and help bring major resources. Secondly, in addition to the quantity, I would argue there's also the quality. We have, the Division of Fire, an incredible amount of specialists who are able to bring specialized care and knowledge to an emergency scene. So the relationship with the township is also beneficial for townships.
Sure. With that, Kathy, I guess we talk about text to 911 service. Elaborate, because again, I mean, I got my phone here, so exactly how would that work and the numbers and the impact it's starting to have on the community as far as response times?
Thank you, Chair Brown. Yes, the Text to 911 was kicked off last January 23rd, and Columbus hosts this for the entire county. So, or most of the county. I think there's a couple other PSAPs that have their own, but they're all coordinated. Text to 911 works, and it's intended for people that can't call radio room, whether there's a language impairment, whether they're in a position that they feel making a phone call would endanger their life. You can imagine it was a pretty new, novel concept, and at first there were quite a few people that just tried it out, just to see if it would work. And I went back through and have looked through several of the transcripts of these calls, and our radio room does a phenomenal job of determining if it's a true 911 need. If it's not an emergency, they really try to push them to call radio room. If it's a child, they try to keep them engaged. We've had quite a few 911 calls come in that are medical. When I read, my dad's hurt, and they carried on a whole conversation with the child until the help could get there. To date, if you add both what Columbus and what we host, the total numbers are 1,809 sessions, which include over 6,000 inbound texts and outbound texts. And we hope that with more time, the system gets used more appropriately by the public. The novelty wears off, and people really learn to determine when's the right time to call. We still always say call if you can, text if you can't.
Kathy, the CAD system, you heard from Director Speaks and certainly from the chief, technology moves at a tremendously fast pace. I think everything turns over approximately every 2 years. The CAD system's we've been dealing with this for a while. Is it going to be now the state of the art, or are we still trying to catch up?
I can answer part of that. Through our pairing with Department of Technology, they have come in to assist us in the CAD upgrade. There is a kickoff meeting tomorrow, actually, about the 9.4 that we're moving up to. That's the highest we can go at this point. You know how technology is. By the time we get to 9.4, 9.6 might be out there, but you try to keep up as best you can. The target date is probably around the 1st of June for the CAD upgrade to be complete.
Well, again, working with the Department of Technology is very important, given the fact that each one of the other safety forces, police and fire, the technology moves so quickly that there has to be integration. And the CAD system, in the sense of receiving the 911 calls, we've gone to E911. It's just got to be as aggressive and stay on top of it as we possibly can. It's an invaluable component, and part of that goes to the training and the staffing that's necessary in the alarm office. And candidly speaking, I looked at the overtime budget for the alarm office. It's higher than what it should be, in my opinion, and therefore that goes to the question of staffing. And I know there's always a balance. There's always going to be overtime. There's no question about it. But the technology is, again, moving at such a pace that we need to make sure that our people are staying on top of all that, and we've got enough staff to continue to deal with the increased volume of runs for our police division, the increased runs for our fire division, the specialty type runs that we're running into with regards to REACT, and now to some degree with the mobile stroke unit, let alone the constant circumstances that they get in the Division of Police. So my commentary, and I'm not asking a question here, is that we've got to be aggressive at keeping our CAD system as on the forefront as we possibly can. And I heard Director speak to the issue of a real-time crime center. That goes into all of that, and it's important for everybody to understand working collectively. Chief Quinlan is excellent at law enforcement. Technology isn't his thing. Same thing with Chief O'Connor. Excellent in firefighting and EMS. Technology, not his thing. But they know enough to say we need to have a better engagement to make sure that they're able to get good quality information quickly, rapidly, and efficiently with regards to that. So when you meet tomorrow with Director Orp and others, you can feel free to mention to him, because I already have, about the importance of that, okay?
Thank you.
In public safety, Director, I'm going to ask ECHO to speak to the issue of the contract remains the same. ECHO, I know they're building a new jail. Can you speak to our rates are what, about $85 a prisoner or somewhere in that area?
That is correct. About a year ago, 2 years ago, they started a $3 increase per diem. It went from 79 to 82 to 85 this year, and it's going to go to 88 next year. The total cost of the medical prisoner contract, it's come down a little bit this year. Although the rates went up, the per diem went up, the total cost has come down a little bit. I assume it's alternative sentence and stuff that's made it come down a little bit, or that we're not spending enough time. The prisoners are not spending as much time in jail.
Well, yeah, Chairman Brown,
Yes, please.
to be specific, even though the cost has risen by $3 over last year per individual prisoner that we take to the Franklin County Jail, the overall cost is lower. And I believe that ECHO is correct. Working with our many partners, the City Attorney's Office, our folks at the county, including the commissioners, the courts, the probation department, the philosophy in the criminal justice system is changing, if you will. It's going from short-sighted, being punitive, to incarcerating folks, to a more holistic, long-term view. And with that, what I mean is we're trying to get at the reasons folks are being arrested. And therefore, with our contract, the jail is providing more mental health care than they have in the past, education, job training, addiction services to address the drug epidemic. Again, I think we're trying to be more holistic. You see that in our diversion programs. You see that with respect to the various specialty courts. All of that, I believe, is causing less jail days.
And we're talking about the increase in calls for service. Is that having an impact for you, Chief Quinlan? I mean, just the sheer volume of runs, is that going up or is that staying the same? I know our population is growing, we expect that, but since for calls for service?
Central calls for service are staying, relatively similar, as are our arrests from last, from last year to this year. The rest are right on target from each year, so they're pretty much status quo.
And you mentioned also about homicides. Can you give me what's the, we're at now about 98. We were at 114 last year. What's our solvability rate of those 98 homicides approximately?
There's a area that's more disappointing. It's down to 40% right now. We were over 50% or right at 50%. So that is an area I've already met with numerous times, Chief Becker, and we are developing a plan for how to handle the criminal case management side of it and how to do more development of informants and partnerships with the community. We're looking at creating neighborhood coordination officers. With that, as staffing allows, the idea there is that someone in the community is kind of a constant fixture as an officer. They may not speak to a detective the night of, but the person that has a relationship ongoing with that neighborhood can talk to the person, and we see a lot of people unwilling to talk to us at the time, but they may speak to a neighborhood coordination officer afterwards and feed information back. We have moved our crime analysts into headquarters and put them all in a central pool, basically, so they're able to share information more directly than being on an outward location and having their own little offices. Now they're all going to be more centrally pooled. So we're using more criminal intelligence officers, civilian employees, criminal intelligence analysts. So we are working on a plan to increase the level because 40% is entirely unacceptable.
Chief, what do you project it to be? What do you want to make it happen in your responsibility? How would you want to go to 45%, 50%, or what's the number that you're going to shoot for?
Well, I can
Use the
tell you,
fund.
I can tell you that traditionally, historically, the number has been roughly around 50%. My goal is to move back to or beyond that number higher than 50%. Whatever that optimistic goal is going to be, we're going to evaluate once we know what type of criminal case management we have so we can look at that. We're moving cases more quickly out from the initial investigator and moving it to a cold case squad so they have more time to look at those and follow up on cases since they're not gaining new cases every periodically. So that's the goal. The target is to get at or above 50%.
Chief O'Connor, I guess, again, with the increase in cases involving opioid overdoses, your runs are significant. How the relationship between the police division and the fire division in the sense of addressing the concerns, could you speak to that in the sense of just dealing with the sheer volume of, 500 cases last year or something like that, opioid overdoses?
That was just what the police were able to administer Narcan on, was over 500.
you're doing
The
what?
Division of Fire is responding to between 8 and 12 overdoses a day.
8 to 12.
A day. So just doing the math, the police were able to assist us with almost 500 of those because of their close proximity, and many times that we get there, they get there right before us, we get there right before. We're both out in the community, so it just depends on who's closer. Now, with our partnership with the police, our partnership with Adam H., the funding from the city attorney's office in regards to help with the grant, the additional grant that Director Speak spoke of, this is a system approach instead of just a symptom approach. What had happened historically with HOPIA responses in the past was it was a symptom approach to EMS, and the fact that there was an overdose, the EMS unit would respond, we would transport that patient to the hospital, and then we'd hope for the best. What we found was a lot of times that system wasn't working because the person wasn't in a situation where they were ready to accept the help. Now what we're doing, it's a more holistic approach. Not only are we treating that symptom, we're still providing that care, we're providing even more care because now we have the 2,000 plus officers of the Division of Police that are able to assist us in that response. We're also, there's a public education campaign out there that just about anybody in the city of Columbus is eligible to pick up Narcan from different outlets, from pharmacies to the health department to Division of Fire, all those different places. And then what happens is when they go out on these runs and respond, then that partnership team that both myself and Chief Quinlan talked about, the REACT team, is paired with a drug addiction specialist and a social worker. They're able to do follow-ups with not only the individual but the family, because sometimes it's the family that helps the individual get into treatment, sometimes it's the individual that just reaches a low that they want that acceptance. But one of the things we found is the people on the street, when they have that overdose, if we were to just wake them up with Narcan, and they were to leave, they had a high incident of reoccurrence versus the fact that if we were able to get them in touch with somebody from the REACT team that was do a follow-up, that the person, when they're at that crisis point where they've overdosed, that may not be the best time for them to be deciding whether they want to have rehabilitation. By doing that follow-up, they're reaching them in a more neutral time frame. Where it's in a very non-confrontational approach. This is not about enforcement. This is about health and wellness for this individual, and it's showing results. We have better numbers than we've ever had before. We're seeing, it may not sound great, but about a 20% these people are entering treatment, where before that's an almost 100% increase in the number of people that would seek treatment otherwise. So those are big numbers.
And before I add something else to Quinlan, but the mobile stroke unit,
Yes.
speak to the clarity of the issue with regards to, it's just one vehicle, right?
Yeah, it's only one vehicle. It is in a partnership between all three of the hospital systems in Central Ohio have partnered together, which is unique concept across the country. As far as we know, it's the only one in the country that is a partnership among all three hospital systems, both the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, the Mount Carmel Health Systems, and Ohio Health Systems have all partnered together. What we do is this unit is only staffed 12 hours a day from 0700 to 1900. The reason is we can see historically that that's the most likelihood that that truck can make a difference. It's responding. Its numbers are greater than what we anticipated. It's doing about 5 runs a day. It is dispatched on all stroke calls. And what we're finding is it is being the initial call, which we talked about, that right resource, right time, are being evaluated. It's making it in to greater than just about 50% of those cases. And of the 50% of those initial dispatches, it's transporting over 70% of these people. 28 people have been given TPA in an average of 26 minutes from arrival to TPA. That the hospital's gold standard, if you were to enter a hospital system and walk into their ER, their gold standard is 1 hour, and we're able to do that in 26 minutes, and it's many times in their front yard. This is dramatically increasing the amount of brain that is saved, which is increasing the possibility that these people can live normal lives after suffering this devastating illness. It's able to help both hemorrhagic and occlusive strokes. This partnership has been worked out very well, and it's constantly under review. So like I said, we're only open 12 hours for this service right this time. That's constantly in review, trying to find out the right times, trying to find out what the best mix is, and also to provide what's providing the best patient care and when the best outcomes can occur.
And Director Speaks, a question about we talked about body cameras, we talked about cameras in the cars. What about community cameras? Where do we stand with the neighborhood cameras?
So you have some stats on that. 1 second. That's it. Chairman, we now have 231 cameras deployed throughout the city across 75 different locations. If you recall, a single location may have multiple cameras in 5 different neighborhoods. We currently have allocated in this budget about $500,000 for the maintenance, and we are also have been speaking about the possibility of expansion.
And Chief Quinlan, 2 issues for you. One, the matrix report also addresses the issue of wellness, and can you speak to that? And since of the recommendations associated with it, and a little more detail with regards to ShotSpotter, because we're going to spend additional monies to maintain ShotSpotter going into 2020, the value of that and sensitive response times.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Appreciate it. The division with the authorization of the mayor implemented an 18th commander for the purpose of a wellness bureau. Part of our technology solution that we'll be requesting includes an early intervention system. So right now, our early intervention system is limited to basically a review a year in the rear of officers who use force or get a citizen complaint or a combination thereof that's disproportionate with their counterparts. However, there's nothing that actually looks at the wellness piece of an officer as far as how many times has an officer this month, say, let's use the year. How many times during this year has an officer responded to a suicide, a homicide, a child struck and killed, where there has to be some impact on their mental well-being? It just is human nature. It's just, they're very compassionate individuals, and it sticks with you. And then they've also maybe moved twice during that 12-month period. And they've also marked off sick and been disciplined for coming late to work. There's no trigger right now, currently, that identifies an officer who has some of these experiences to tell a sergeant, pull them aside. Again, on a monthly basis, we need a dashboard where a supervisor can be alerted, hey, this person's been on this many homicides and suicides this month, had been injured twice. Pull them aside and make sure that everything's okay, or if they need anything. We have chaplain program in our wellness bureau with all denominations represented. We have officer support teams. We have the crisis intervention team officers that can do it.
CIT.
Yes, we have a lot of different resources now, all housed in one bureau with their therapy dog units and a system we're building to focus on officer wellness. One of the things I wanted to do was, and I use seizure funds to do this, is create a space at the courthouse where an officer who works third shift, say who works 7P to 5A, they get off at 5 a.m., they have to wait until 9 o'clock for court. So what do? Is you can't go home and go to sleep and try to get back up and get dressed in uniform and back in that short time period. But they may have to sit there until noon before they're released or before they're needed. So we now have a system where they can go in and get some sleep while they're waiting for court, or at least get some rest and not be in a bright lit room around a lot of people. They can have some quiet mental relief time. And because one of the problems is they work all night and then they may be up to 11 o'clock in the morning. They're released from court. Now they're driving home with 24 hours with no sleep. That we look at that as an impaired driver. So we can't in good conscience continue to allow that to happen. So I've created a system as part of the wellness plan to improve the opportunities for officers to get that relief from the monotony of what they experience day in and day out. So the Wellness Bureau has been very engaging so far. We're looking at sports programs, not just for officers to get some relief out and exercise programs, but also with community members. We're doing stuff, we're looking at a lacrosse team with inner city schools and soccer teams, and so we're doing that. I've asked for, in the civilian prioritization budget, an exercise physiologist at the academy to basically be able to set up a program that's unique to each officer that wants to engage in more wellness behavior, which will really drive down costs, we believe, of healthcare costs and stuff of officers, missed work, lost productivity, and health, medications, other things, by improving their overall wellness. And then on ShotSpotter?
Yes.
Okay. On ShotSpotter, sir, thank you. What we have there is we've had a lot of success with ShotSpotter. What we're seeing is calls that are coming in before any citizen ever even calls. We're getting notified, which means officers can get in the area sooner or be heading in the direction of where the call came in and maybe see people leaving the area. I was in the area earlier this week, I think it was Monday, where I heard a run go out with ShotSpotter, and we said we got a ShotSpotter alert at this alley, this area, but it was almost a block away where citizens said they heard, where calls came in, said they heard it here. Well, because of the echo and the sound traveling and bouncing around between buildings, people rightfully said, hey, I hear gunfire, but we would have been looking around the block had we gone to where the caller was. We knew go right where right where the incident occurred. So and sometimes we don't get a call at all. So what we've seen, just anecdotally, for this year alone, there's been 4 incidents where, 4 times where a ShotSpotter alert came in, where no other call was received. Officers got to the scene, found a gunshot victim, and were able to get medics there in time to save their life. They applied tourniquets. They engaged in life-saving measures until the medics could get there, and they were able to save at least 4 people's lives this year, which again has certainly helped reduce the number of homicides because we were able to find them where no one else would have called. So I think that's a really productive use of that. We are wanting to expand the program in 2020 by adding an additional area of town out towards the east side and expand the radius of the 3 existing areas between the Hilltop, Linden, and Parsons Avenue.
Thank you. I have a couple more, but we're starting to get a little late, and we have at least one speaker from the community. So we're going to have Mr. Steve Stein. You wish to address this issue? Please step up to the podium, please. Please state your full name. You filled out a speaker slip. You have 3 minutes, and the organization you represent, sir.
Thank you, Chair Brown. My name is Stephen Stein. I'm representing the Columbus Firefighters Union, Local 67. Chair Brown, thank you for hosting this forum to discuss the 2020 operating budget for public safety forces. It is a distinct honor to address you and our colleagues who lead the City of Columbus as we decide how best to allocate resources to serve the citizens next year. As president of the Columbus Firefighters Union, it is my privilege and responsibility to represent the over 1,500 men and women who serve our citizens day in and day out. As you know from your years of extensive service and experience, public safety infrastructure is a vital component to the sustained and healthy growth of any city, let alone one of the largest municipalities in the United States. As our city enjoys the benefits of unprecedented growth, so too must we recognize the necessary investments to not only maintain the fire and EMS services our citizens expect, but those needed to keep up with the growth of our city. As I stated a few weeks ago in Finance Committee Chair Liz Brown's hearing, we are concerned that the budgeted recruit class sizes for 2020 will barely, if at all, keep up with the attrition rate sustained through service-related separations, career-ending injuries, and job-related cancers that we're losing our members to. We wholeheartedly acknowledge, support, and appreciate the investments made that put more medics on the road and will open Station 35 next month. But as you are well aware, we still have much work to do as it pertains to getting the firefighters and the company officers needed to provide the best fire and EMS possible in all of our neighborhoods. Again, thank you for hosting this forum to allow us to have this conversation. We look forward to continuing our partnership with you and all of our other elected and appointed leaders as we lean into this conversation. So thank you, sir.
Do you have any questions at all you get a chance to ask the chief a question right now? I may not get another opportunity to do that.
I get plenty of time to do that down at headquarters, but no, thank you
this
for
is on
the...
television.
Yeah, I know, which is why I'll defer at this time. But thank you, Chair. I appreciate it, and thank you to the Director's Office for their insights and the relationship, the working relationship that we have. We do appreciate it. So.
And to say to all of the members of the IAFF, again, the acknowledgement and appreciation for the hard work they do every single day. We don't get an opportunity to say enough about the heroes that are in our fire division and our police division. And certainly I have a keen sensitivity to that. So again, thank you, and please pass that along to the membership.
Thank you, sir. It means a ton. I will.
If any members of the community have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact the Department of Public Safety at 614-645-8210, or my office at 614-645-4605. In closing, I would like to thank my fellow council members, or at least the council president, Mayor Ginther, and Megan Kilgore, Auditor, City Attorney Zach Klein, Finance Director Joe Lombardi, Public Safety Director Ned Pettis Jr. for their leadership in this budget process. In addition, I'd like to recognize, obviously, Director George Speaks and Mr. Echo Dennis and the entire Department of Public Safety and their staff for their role in the budget process. And also, of course, to thank you to Chief Quinlan and Chief O'Connor and Administrator Collins for their presentation this evening. And I'd also like to thank my staff, Denise Friend Foster, John Oswald, Matt Erickson, Grant Ames, for preparing today's hearing. And finally, I would like to thank the community for their engagement in today's proceedings. It's important to understand that, obviously, public safety represents 67% of the entire city budget. But also, we have individuals, again, who are heroes every single day. We unfortunately have had some police officers who were hurt in an unfortunate tragedy in New Jersey. I know Chief Quinlan is very sensitive to that, but it involves all public and first responders. We have to just keep aware of the fact that you guys and ladies put your lives on the line every single day. And it does not go unnoticed by this council, certainly not by this council member, and certainly by the mayor, who I know very, very well, feels the same way. Upon conclusion of today's hearing, I, along with my fellow council members, will review the public safety budget with consideration to the comments from today's proceedings. I trust that Deputy Director Speaks and Fire Chief O'Connor and Police Chief Quinlan and Administrator Collins will make themselves available, or their staffs available to answer any future questions. This concludes tonight's Public Safety Committee hearing on the proposed 2020 Public Safety Operating Budget. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.